D&Ders, RPGers, game masters, and the such. I'm gonna this is my follow-up video to OSR 1d6 skill checks. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I read something on Reddit, it says 9 days ago, on creating a more competent variant of the thief class. And so in researching this, right, this guy says something sort of interesting. I don't want to use a thief class as such when I play basic D&D. I have my own rules and created a long time ago with general skills that any class can learn, and rogue type skills just get more skill points than other classes, right? Which kind of I was sort of doing, like everybody can do these kind of things, right? Just these are just better at them, right? So what was really interesting is this part. But when I played a short advanced D&D adventure back in January, I was reminded how the percentage thief skills actually worked in play. And frankly, yep, they suck now just like they always did back in the 80s and 90s. I know, thief skills are extraordinary, thief skills are saving throws, thief skills are a chance for the whole party to save time or save resources or remain quiet, blah, blah, blah. But of course, that's pure OSR revisionism and not how they actually work in old rules or how they usually wind up getting used in the table. These, as written, really are just incompetent at their jobs until very high experience levels, and it's no fun. So I thought about this and went back and looked at the quote-unquote statistics I provided for, this is like me within a me, the skill checks. As you can see, a 33% chance at climbing walls does seem kind of weak. This is the thing I kind of came up with using D6 rolls, all right? So suppose we start off pretty much everything with a 50-50, except for one thing. Let's say hiding in shadows. That'd probably be one of the hardest things they can do is not be seen. And it's just something I came up with. So I kind of moved these stats up, right? And when I say move them up, I ended up with this as being the categories, right? So you can see it's like 3d6, right? So I always do 1, 2, 3. It's easier when I say it's a 3 out of 6. Intuitive people think, okay, 3 or less, right? So rolling up would be more difficult. Obviously, as you go up, it becomes quite easy, but there's always a possibility of failure. I never play modules above 10th level because it's just simply so hard to create them and so hard to orchestrate. So I just kind of, it depends on what you like to do. Me personally, it's always, I think the sweet spot for me is around 5th or 6th level. You get the fun stuff, and now and then you get these beautiful, amazing spells on a scroll, and it's used, and then, it kind of changes, more conservative in your actions. Each his own, right? But look at most of these things, like the moving silently and picking pockets. I give that the dexterity, and the race, a halfling race gets a +1 to these things. So once again, if we bump this up just a little bit, opening locks, 50-50. A thief should be able to, or you're not really playing a thief. And even 50-50, it's pretty bad. Checking for traps, a 2 out of 6. Sometimes I give them a bonus because the sheer fact of how descriptive they are and what they're doing. And I remember looking at several Reddit forums, people were asking, how would you do this? How would you do this? And OSR, it's like, I'm currently playing and running this with my friend, Mike, and my son. And it's 2 guys, and they're both running 2. Mike has 3 characters, or 4 characters, actually, sometimes. And what happens is it's really easy to say just roll 3 out of 6 or 4 out of 6. I just kind of what's your level, what's your dexterity, and that would help with this thing. You don't want to start, and that's another thing I've read a lot about, adding too many attribute bonuses on all these things. Then you get yourself in a tangled mess and it gets hard. Let's say opening locks. Oh, he's got an intelligence of 18 as a thief. You get a +2 on opening a lock. I don't know if it's a skill and not necessarily an intelligence thing. Sometimes so why don't you add dex to all of them? Well, how would you add dex to hearing sounds? It has nothing to do with it, right? Or climbing a wall might have nothing to do with dexterity. It's more of a strength thing. So you can start adding a whole bunch of things on there. I think it just gets more and more difficult to keep the game focused and not deal with all the little weird things, all right? The other things I was kind of looking at, my original things had this as far as difficulty. Skill checks for 3d6 was normal, hard, very hard, impossible, and epic. I took epic and added it in, but the other thing I was citing had very different names. So I remodified this, and obviously these are all clickable things, and I'll put the links in the description before if you want to use these type of tables. But once again, to explain how this works, it's very simple. If you're trying to do something that was normal and you have a 0 in your ability score, it's 50-50. Otherwise, I don't really make them roll. I want to go down the hallway and do, okay, whatever. It doesn't. But let's say you want to do something that's really weird. I'm going to scale up this wall. It's a 10-foot wall. Well, I'm going to scale it and, it's not smooth. That would be a climbing walls thing for a thief. Thieves can climb really smooth walls. But this has got rocks and stuff. Like you could be dangerous. And then you say it's a 50-50, right? Let's say it's a higher. Let's say it's a 20-foot wall. Well, then it's like a 2 out of 6. And then you can add, let's say, strength modifiers or anything else in the back. Those are my dogs fighting over bones. The other thing, too, is I came up with a really interesting 1d6 crits and fumble table. Because characters like crits and fumbles. They enjoy it a whole lot. So if they roll a 20, I say roll, okay, a d6. In this case, if you roll a d6 and you get a 6, double maximum damage. Or if you roll a 5, it's just maximum damage. Now keep in mind when you're playing OSR, the hit points are not as high, right? So the next thing is if you roll a 4, you get that. And these are the two cool ones I came up with, right? So one of them is your victim's armor class is damage. It's -4 to their armor class, and it's permanent, right? Or it'd be +4 if you're doing descending armor class or whatever. And the idea behind it is like everyone benefits from your strike. And it was really kind of a cool thing. It's worked in, right? And obviously -2, and this is just roll for an additional attack. So even if you roll a 20, at least you just get an additional attack, which is sort of fun. So I have a fumble chart because they keep rolling ones, or I keep rolling ones as my monsters. And I said, well, what happens? And I kept saying, well, I got tired of saying you lose a round of battle. This is fun because you could still come up with a 6. If you roll a 1d6, come a 6, nothing happens. You're fine, right? You're still lucky, right? 5 means you drop your weapon and you lose a round. 4, you hit your closest ally for maximum damage. This happens, like, I think 3 times in our last session. It's hysterical because you got to find the closest ally, and sometimes it's like, well, I had a sword. How can I possibly hit him? He's 20 feet away. Well, the enemy flings the sword out of your hand with his spear, and it flies up and nails your partner there in the back and the neck. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess that could happen. So it makes it sort of fun. Then they have to go get their sword, too. It kind of leads to the next thing. So you can have some fun with this. And then hit the closest ally, roll for damage, and then obviously 2 hit points. So it could be like you hit the shield and parts of it chips off, and then it comes like a giant splinter, goes across the room and nails your friend in the head. Yeah, this is where you're creative, and this is where it gets really fun, and people, it's fun doing it. I don't know why more than anything. My favorite part is sometimes they acquire magic weapons, and all of a sudden you're just like, damn, they're just tanking everything with this +2 axe that they just chop things up. And then sometimes you're kind of wishing that some of these things become consumables, right? And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have this plus whatever. And you're kind of like, they'll never lose it unless I take it from them. And then they'll think I'm just being mean. This way they can actually lose it by rolling a 1, and then they roll another 1. It's no longer +2, it's +1, right? And if it goes from +1 to 0, then it's just 0. And if it goes anything lower than that, it's just destroyed. You can't use it. So this adds an additional level of, wow, that really... there's odds you can lose something, right? So with that, I just want to kind of like put these out there because it's a nice way of kind of enhancing your game, and it's fast. There's a lot of talk about 1d6 or using 2d6 and granularity of the whole thing, and then the 1d20 is more swingy. I think when you're playing, at least for me, when in game sessions, I've been playing a lot with my friends, is that 1d6 is fast, it's quick, and if you have these tables where you can just instantly see the results, it keeps the game moving. And if it keeps the game moving, then they're more immersed in what's happening. And that's just my take on it. With that, RPGers, DMers, Game Masters, and the such, I want you to have an excellent day. All right? Bye-bye.